We are currently, 43 days away from when free agency is going to be an issue. And people have been asking me, where do you think John Tavares is going to go? My answer is, your guess is as good as mine, but I'll do my best to narrow it down. Here are your top point-producing players who are going to be free agents this summer. John Tavares, John Carlson, David Perron, Thomas Vanek, James Van Riemsdyk, Evander Kane, Paul Stastny, James Neal, Tyler Bozak, and Riley Nash. Not Rick Nash. But let's take a look. And what I did was I didn't change the cap space for next year. So I said, all right, I'll just leave it at $75 million. I'll go directly from what Cap Friendly tells me. And that way we just know going forward kind of thing. Sort of like my going forward videos, but not as... just looking at July 1st. It's not worrying about the draft, just looking at July 1st. The Anaheim Ducks have $9.2 million in cap. They last missed the playoffs in 2012. But they're restricted free agents. They have Montour, Cachet, and Ritchie. Unrestricted free agents coming off the books. The ones of note, I didn't put everybody down for these lists. Vermette, Bieksa, and Boscheman. Anaheim to me is a non-starter. I can't see them coming up with the cap space for the big name free agents. They might be in on a secondary free agent this summer. I can't see them being in on a main guy. Arizona last made the playoffs in 2012. They have a cap space of $22.9 million. The only restricted free agent worth mentioning is Domi. Connauton's an unrestricted free agent. He had 10 goals this year. Do they keep him? And Brad Richardson, of course, one of my personal favorite players, coming off the books as well. Now, while I have an asterisk next to Arizona, meaning they have $19 million or more in cap space for next season at a $75 million cap, the cap space really doesn't matter, so I didn't increase the cap space because everybody's working with the same number. I still don't see Arizona being in the running for a main free agent, only because are they going to become a team that spends more money? Now, if John Chayka wants to spend more money, Carlson's right here. He could pick up Carlson. He could pick up a guy in a top draft pick this year who could maybe push for a roster spot. And Dylan Strome should make the team next year out of camp. And I think Strome's going to be better than a lot of people give him credit for. But I don't see them being in the market for a big name. And I don't see Tavares even thinking about going there. They haven't made it to the playoffs since 2012. Boston last missed the playoffs in 2016. They're not in the market. They have $9.6 million in cap space. Rick Nash is leaving. Riley Nash maybe, and Hudobin. I think Riley Nash probably comes back. Rick Nash is probably gone. Hudobin may come back. They're not in the market for any of these big name free agents. Buffalo last made the playoffs in 2011. They have $19.1 million in cap space. Leonard's a restricted free agent. Sam Reinhart's a restricted free agent. He'll get a raise. Who knows how much? UFAs, Georges and Chad Johnson are on the board as restricted free agents for them, or unrestricted free agents for them. And of course, Antipin is going back to the KHL. There's a number of guys going to the KHL. Nobody of really major importance. I mean, there's been a number of guys who've decided to sign over there, but really, this is European or Russian players who understand that going forward, they're probably not going to be a part of the team's plans, or they're not going to get the kind of ice time they might have thought they would, so they're going home. So I don't see it as a huge loss or a huge shift in balance of power between leagues. Calgary's got $12 million in cap space this summer. Their big RFA is Jankowski. Stajan's the closest they get to a big UFA. They're not in the market. I can't see them getting a major player. I could see them getting a secondary guy at a $3 million cap hit. I can't see them picking up anybody major. Carolina, $27.3 million. I do need to do a video on Carolina because things just keep getting crazier. Hanifin, Van Riemsdyk, that's Trevor Van Riemsdyk, and Elias Lindholm are on the RFA list, and they're going to command a big raise. Hanifin especially is going to want a lot of money because he deserves it. UFA, Stempniak, and Ward are coming off the books. I don't know if they'll bring Ward back. I would think with Tom Dundon and his determination to make things better, the fact they last made the playoffs in 2009, I would think Cam Ward's probably out of a job. You may see Ward and Darling out of jobs this summer. He may buy Darling out. I don't know. But at $27.3 million in cap space, I do have an asterisk there, and I do have an underline, meaning that I do see them as a potential landing spot for John Tavares. he may be warned off by the fact that there seems to be this fire sale thing going on. He doesn't want to leave. I wouldn't think he'd want to leave the Islanders for Carolina if it's going to be a potentially worse situation. So I think that may put him off. I think if they kept things the way they were, Ron Francis stayed in charge, and if there was a continuing plan unfolding, this burn it to the ground and start over when you're already at the bottom, it's troubling. We'll just put it that way. It's troubling. Chicago has $7.8 million in cap space. Hinestro's is their highest profile RFA, and Sharp's retired. They're not going to be in the market for a big name free agent this summer. Colorado, $23.1 million in cap space. They missed the playoffs last year. They made the playoffs this year. Nemeth is their biggest RFA. Bernier's a UFA. Now they have $23 million in cap. I don't have an underline under them because I can't see why they would necessarily view Tavares as a move forward for them. They may want a blue liner. Carlson may fit with Colorado with all that cap space. But again, you've got some guys on entry-level contracts. You've got a young team here. You don't necessarily want to throw that off. Columbus, they last missed the playoffs 2 years ago. This is the first time they made the playoffs 2 years in a row. There's some pressure on Columbus, and I think that'll come to bear this summer. Pressure to move up and not drop back. They're restricted free agents. They have $13.3 million in cap space. Jenner, Murray, and Bjorkstrand. I would expect Ryan Murray to get moved this summer. I would be very surprised if he's back with Columbus. They're unrestricted free agents. Calvert, Vanek, Jack Johnson, and Ian Cole. Cole appears to be the only one that they may re-sign. I don't see them as a landing spot for a Tavares, Carlson type free agent. Dallas has $17.6 million in cap space. They haven't made the playoffs in the last 2 years. Jamel Smith and Matthias Janmark are their RFAs. Roussel, Hamhuis, and Lettinen are the UFAs. I would be very surprised if Roussel leaves the team. I think they'll keep him. Hammer, I think, will probably go. And Lettinen, I think his time is done in Dallas unless he takes a big pay cut. But they do have the cap space. I'm half tempted to put them as a potential spot for Tavares, except for the fact that they have Tyler Seguin. And I don't know that they'd want to have two number one centers, and I don't know what that would do to the rest of the team. Honestly, if they could get rid of Spezza's contract, I would probably have an underline under Dallas, but who's taking that contract? Detroit last made the playoffs 2 years ago. They have $18.1 million in cap space, but Dylan Larkin, Anthony Mantha, and Andreas Athanasiou are all up for contract renegotiation, and Larkin and Mantha are going to get big raises. UFAs likely to leave, Green and Coro. And I have Coro on there because Jared Coro is not a major player, but it means they only have one goalie under contract, really, for next fall. So they're going to be in the market for a goaltender, but with $18.1 million in cap, and that's before the cap goes up, they have room. I don't have them as a landing spot for Tavares because I don't think Tavares would go to Detroit. It doesn't feel like a spot for him. Edmonton, $10.1 million in cap. They made the playoffs last year. Darnell Nurse, Ryan Strome, and Drake Caggiula are all restricted free agents. That's troubling if you want to see improvement on the Oilers because they don't have a lot of cap space to do it. They don't have cap space to bring in a Carlson on the blue line. I don't see Tavares as an Oiler. That just doesn't work on any level. But I don't see them being major players in free agency this summer either. Now, of course, I am not taking into account buyouts because we can get into crazy talk then if we talk buyouts. And I want to just keep this simple. Florida, $9 million in cap space. Petrovic and McCann are the only RFAs this summer. I'm not seeing them as players for this summer. And when you see them with $9 million in cap space, that's why Vegas has Riley Smith and Jonathan Marchessault. Because the Panthers really needed to unload some salary. I think they unloaded the wrong salary, but that's me. The Kings have $4.25 million in cap space. Tobias Reeder, if they decide to keep him, RFA. Christian Folin and Kevin Gravel are UFAs coming off the books. I don't see LA being able to make any upgrades. They're going to have to improve from within. Minnesota, $7.5 million in cap space. Dumba and Zucker are restricted free agents due for big raises. Matt Cullen's the only UFA coming off the books of note, really. They're not going to be adding anybody this summer that I can tell. Montreal, $13.3 million in cap space. They made the playoffs last year, of course. Philip Deneau is RFA this summer. He'll get a raise, not a lot. Niemi's coming off the books. Had a good run with Montreal, but he's not really needed now that they've got Lindgren and Price, as long as Price is healthy. And I don't see them making a play to keep Niemi. Nashville, $7.4 million in cap space for them. Saros and Hartman are the RFAs of note. Saros is going to get a raise. Hartman, it'll be interesting because they did give up a first-round draft pick to Chicago to get Hartman. So clearly they think a lot of him. He was a healthy scratch during the playoffs. We'll see how this works out for them. I'm not saying this is going to be their version of the Irat deal, but if that number one draft pick for Chicago becomes a really good player, they're going to have egg on their face pretty quick. UFA's coming off the books. Alexei Emelin, I don't think they bring him back. And Scotty Hartnell. Hartnell was a healthy scratch during the playoffs as well. I think his career is probably at an end. New Jersey. So I don't see Nashville being active. New Jersey, $19.8 million in cap space. They made the playoffs this year after missing last year. Wood and Nason are the two RFAs of note. Maroon, Grabner, and Moore are all UFAs leaving the team. I don't think they're going to try to keep any of them. I warned people when Grabner was up from the Rangers. I said Grabner is, not probably not going to put up these numbers somewhere else. Because it's $19.8 million in cap space, I do have an underline here because it does feel like a spot where Tavares could go. They're an up-and-coming team. Yes, they're a division rival for the Islanders. That may be a problem. But if you're looking at teams that are on the right side of things right now and seem to be getting themselves together, and yet they have a spot in the middle where Tavares can play, New Jersey's on that list. The Islanders. Yeah, there's an underline under the Islanders because they have the money. $28.2 million in cap space this summer, if he doesn't come back. Pulak and Nelson are the only restricted free agents of note. Unrestricted, Tavares, of course, Dahan, Hickey, and Halak. Goaltending is still an issue. You can lose Halak, but what are you replacing him with? And this is something that Tavares may very well be looking at and saying, these guys have Corey Schneider, and Kincaid's the backup. These guys have this Lundqvist guy. Georgiev looked pretty good down the stretch. They also have some pretty solid prospects in net. These are the New York Islanders, who have a solid prospect in net, which we're not sure when he's going to arrive. But right now, there isn't really that guy who's holding the job. So that may be an issue for the Islanders that they need to address if they're going to get Tavares extended. But there's an underline here because superstar players very rarely move while they're in their prime. Very often they will stay with the team they're with until they're in their mid-30s, and then they'll move. The Rangers have an underline as well. They made the playoffs last year, $24.9 million in cap space. Their RFAs, Brady Shea, John Gilmore, Rob O'Gara, Ryan Spooner, Nemesnikov, Jimmy Vesey. Their only UFA of notes, Pavlik. Now, what they pay to keep Nemesnikov, Spooner, and Shea, I'm not worried about Gilmore or O'Gara. They're not going to get a ton. If Shea, Spooner, and Nemesnikov eat into too much of this, they won't be in play for one of these big names. And remember, these aren't the top paid. These are the guys who put up the most goals. These guys may be in the running for a JVR. But if they could sign Tavares, or if they could just go crazy and sign a Tavares and a JVR and re-sign all these guys, they won't have any other money at all for a while. But the Rangers could go from missing the playoffs this year to being a contender next year. It could be a huge turnaround in a very short period of time. So I do have them on the list as a potential landing spot for Tavares. They're in the top 5. Ottawa, $15.5 million in cap, but they have Stone and Ceci as restricted free agents. Nobody of note coming off as unrestricted. I don't think that with the complaining that was done by Eugene Melnyk about spending money and not getting anything on his return, I don't think he's going to spend to the cap this year. I don't see that happening. And Stone's going to get some decent money, and Ceci's going to get some decent money too. So this $15 million in cap is going to be below 10, when those guys are signed, maybe in the 5 range. Flyers, $17.2 million in cap space. The only restricted free agent of note that I found was Haig. Unrestricted, Filppula, Reed, and Oduya, they're all gone. Technically, the money is there to sign Tavares if they wanted to. I just don't see why they do that with both Giroux and Couturier. I don't see that desire would be there to completely churn things up like that in Philly, other than to screw over the Islanders. But is that desire really that strong in Philly these days? I don't think so. But let me know in the comment section what you think. Pittsburgh, they're not going to be big in the free agent market. $4.7 million in cap space. Sheehan, or Sheehan, or Sheehan, or Sheehan. It's pronounced all kinds of different ways. It has to be frustrating for him or fun for him one way or the other. Rust and Simone are all up as restricted free agents. So whatever part of that $4.7 million, or as I've said, the cap's going to go up, they'll eat up a lot of whatever's going on with that cap. And I just don't see them being all that active. I could see them maybe bringing in a Perron. I could see them maybe getting Perron to sign for a bit of a discount to help them under the cap, to come in and try to put them over the top. Like, they need a scoring winger. They really do. But I can't see them making a big play. St. Louis, they last made it, of course, last year. $12.3 million. Fabry's an RFA this summer. What's Fabry worth right now? Because he was out all year. He should be healthy by the fall, but is he going to be? What is Robbie Fabry? And that question could be huge for the next 3 or 4 years for St. Louis. If he's a star player, awesome. If these injuries have held him back on a more permanent level, that could be devastating. And Joel Edmondson is an RFA this summer. I thought he played well. I like St. Louis's defense a lot. Carter Hutton's a UFA this summer. Don't overpay Carter Hutton. Don't pay him based on his numbers this year. Don't get romanticized with them, because when a backup goaltender has that career year, sometimes it can be tempting to give them more money than they probably should get. So I don't see St. Louis being a big player, but I could see them bringing in one of these secondary guys. I could see like a Bozak working there potentially. Again, it depends on what happens with Fabry and what they want to do down the middle, because Bozak's the center, best suited for third line. Is that something St. Louis would look at? Just throwing that out there. San Jose, $14.5 million. Again, this is against the $75 million cap. DeMello, Tierney, and Hurdle are all up for negotiation as restricted free agents. Unrestricted, Joe Thornton, who has been invited to come back for one more year. Evander Kane, who I know Sharks fans would love to see back in San Jose. I just don't know that they're going to want to pay the money that Kane's going to want. Based on the season he had this year, I could see Kane commanding a lot of money. And you don't want to be cap strapped down the road to a guy who, yeah, he played well during the run-up to and in parts of the playoffs, but he also cost them in those playoffs in parts too. So don't get caught up in all the positives and in what you think he might be. Make sure that you pay attention to what he did in the playoffs. And also on that list, which I understand is partly cut off, so I'll go ahead and pan down just a little bit, is Ward. And I would imagine Ward, if he doesn't retire this year, I could see him coming back for one more year. I like Ward. I think he's a good player. We'll see what happens with him this summer. Tampa, $6.2 million. So I'm basically saying I don't see San Jose being a major player this summer. Tampa, $6.2 million, and they've got to re-sign JT Miller and Cedric Paquette, who are restricted free agents. Unrestricted is Kunitz. That's the biggest name coming off the books. So Miller's going to eat up a lot of what's on there for the cap. So Tampa's probably going to be the same team next year they are this year. And as I'm recording this, they're tied at 2 in their series with the Washington Capitals in the conference finals. So I'm sure Tampa fans will be okay with keeping the team as it is. Toronto, $24.8 million. They last missed the playoffs, of course, 2 years ago. They have to sign Nylander this summer, and unrestricted free agents coming off the books include James Van Riemsdyk, Tyler Bozak, Leo Komarov, and Roman Polak. So the money's there, and this is what Toronto media will sell you on. Yes, you can take Tavares, the money's there. Odds are the cap right now at $24.8 million for next year will probably be around $30 million. But they've got to re-sign Matthews and Marner next summer. they've got a lot of young players who are going to command some money. And the risk of bringing in a Tavares is that you might miss or lose one of those kids. Not necessarily right away, but next summer or the summer after. And you may be either keeping Tavares or trying to trade him off. I don't think it works in Toronto. I don't. I don't think John Tavares to Toronto works. And I understand there's going to be Leaf fans who say it does, because every single summer, every free agent is rumored to go to the Leafs. Now, Karlsson might work, but again, Karlsson's dollar value is going to be less than Tavares, but it's still going to be a high number. You look at what he's doing for Washington right now as I'm recording this in the playoffs, and he's been kind of spectacular. I think if Washington's able to find a way to keep him, and I think if he's able to find a way to work it out with Washington, it will happen. I don't know that Karlsson hits the free agent market. But Toronto's an attractive spot for him if he decides to go there. Because they do need help on that blue line, and Karlsson's kind of exactly what they need. Vancouver's got $23 million in cap. They haven't made the playoffs for 3 years now. They're restricted free agents this summer, Berchi and Stetcher. They're not going to get huge raises. I'm really nervous about what Jim Benning's going to give Berchi, just because of some of the contracts he's given out to guys like Louis Eriksson and Brandon Sutter. I don't mind bringing guys in, but overpaying him, I'm worried that he may overpay Berchi to stay. Unrestricted, of course, the Sedin twins come off the books, which is why they have $23 million in cap. And they'll be an attractive landing spot for a free agent, but not Tavares, not Karlsson. They're going to be looking for a spot where they can win. And Vancouver isn't in a position to win anytime soon, unless you can sell Tavares on Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser and some kind of package like that, but I just can't see it. I can't see Tavares coming to Vancouver. Vegas. Vegas has an underline there. Why? They have $24.8 million in cap. Restricted free agents, Colin Miller, Shea Theodore, William Karlsson. Karlsson's going to get paid. Miller's going to get paid, and so's Theodore. But even with those three getting paid long term, they would have the cap to sign a Tavares, or if they wanted it, a Karlsson. Unrestricted's coming off the books, Spiza and James Neal. Now, Neal could very well re-sign. If they re-sign Neal, and if they keep Karlsson, Theodore, and Miller, that'll take them out of the Tavares race. There won't be enough money left for Tavares. Not when you consider what other teams are going to be able to throw at him. But Vegas is an intriguing option, and it would make a lot of people really angry if Tavares as a free agent went to Vegas. Yeah, I can just imagine the posts. Washington, $8.6 million in cap space. They last missed the playoffs in 2014. They have Grubauer, Tom Wilson, Devontae Smith-Pelly as restricted free agents, and John Karlsson as an unrestricted. Even with a raise in the cap of $5 million, I don't think there's enough money there to cover everybody. So Karlsson likely does go to the free agent market. Wilson's going to be interesting too. Do you pay him as a top 6 winger, or do you pay him as a top 9 agitator? The money difference between those two can be high, and what they pay Wilson may decide how much of a contender they are going forward, and how much leeway they're going to have going forward to bring players in. And Winnipeg. So we're up to Winnipeg. $20.5 million in cap space. Again, this is with the $75 million cap we have currently. I'm not going to project for this. That's for the other series I'm doing. But Hellebuck, Trouba, Armia, and Lowry are all restricted free agents this summer. Connor Hellebuck couldn't have picked a better time to have a great season. Goody. Dude's going to make some money this summer. Hellebuck's going to get some nice coin, and he's earned every penny of it. Unrestricted free agents, Stastny and Instrum. I don't know that they can keep Stastny. They will probably try, based on the run they've been on in these playoffs, even if Vegas knocks them out. At the time we're recording this, Winnipeg's down 2-1 against Vegas. Even if Winnipeg knocks them out, I would think it warrants pursuing keeping Stastny on a long-term deal. He currently makes $7 million a year. If you can come in at a similar number with him, I think he'd be interested in staying. It's been quite the run, and Stastny's made a huge difference for the Jets. Enstrom, I think, will probably go. I'd be kind of surprised if he comes back. But there you go. So the big names here, where do they end up? we'll see, and I will definitely look over this again probably on June 30th, as we're on the eve of free agency, because guys are going to get bought out, and the math could change for some of these. For instance, there's a lot of speculation that Gabbert could get bought out by Ottawa. That's been the speculation since they got that contract from the Kings. And we'll see what they do and how that works out. Another one that people talk about a lot. The most popular buyout calculator link is Carl Alzner with Montreal. Montreal fans are very keen on figuring out how much it would cost to get out of the Alzner contract. And I feel bad for Alzner. Alzner's not a bad defenseman. He's just not what Montreal needed. And now he's getting paid a lot of money, and he's not what the team needed. So let me know who you think is going to be the most active come July 1st, and where you think Tavares, Carlson, Perron, Vanek, JVR, Kane, all these guys end up. It's not a fantastic list, and it's going to shrink between now and July 1st. Some of these guys are going to sign to stay where they are. But it's always fun to look at free agency. It's always fun to look at it from this side, and then look at it in July and see where we're at. And yeah, Tavares, maybe he'll probably sign somewhere that I don't have underlined, because that's how unpredictable free agency can be. But by the time by the time June 30th rolls around, we will likely have a much better idea of who's signing where, because of course players can talk to teams before July 1st. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And that's as close as I can come to telling you where I think John Tavares is going to go, or John Carlson. One of these teams. And probably not one that has less than $10 million on the board. So let me know your thoughts. I'll talk to you again soon.